Big changes are on the way when it comes to addressing homelessness in Phoenix and other communities. But not everyone is convinced it will make things better.
Rounding people off the streets, get them in emergency beds.
Arizona Congressman Greg Stanton claims the Trump administration's recent decision to change the guidelines on how federal funding for the homeless can be spent will have a devastating impact across the country. Maricopa County alone stands to lose $32 million in federal assistance and nearly 1,400 housing units.
What the Trump administration wants to do is to virtually eliminate all housing first policies and instead just transition to emergency beds, rounding people off the streets, get them in emergency beds without the wraparound services like health care, mental health services, maybe it's substance abuse services, whatever ails them that's causing their homelessness, to really solve that problem. That's smart policy. And this Trump proposal is a step in the wrong direction.
The new federal policy makes significant cuts to funding for long-term housing while reallocating the money to transitional housing and drug addiction services that includes work requirements. In a statement, the Department of Housing and Urban Development said the new policies will restore accountability and promote self-sufficiency by addressing the root causes of homelessness, including illicit drugs and mental illness.
It's very challenging.
Kerwin Brown is executive director of the Tanner Community Development Corporation, a nonprofit devoted to helping homeless veterans. He does not believe cutting long-term housing will improve the homeless problem.
I don't think there's any question that the homeless population here in Phoenix is going to increase. Cutting resources is not going to solve or make the housing situation any better.
According to the Maricopa Association of Governments, the cuts to long-term housing could cause a 35% to 50% increase in homelessness in the next few months when funding to the current programs runs out.
If you're temporarily housing people just to go through a program with the idea that at the end of that program they have to leave, well, where do they go after that? So you're not solving the housing problem by sending someone through a temporary treatment.
One expert who works with the homeless predicts if these cuts to long-term housing go through, we could see between 3,500 and 5,000 more people living on the streets of Phoenix by February. In Phoenix, Jason Berry for Arizona's Family.